All right, moving on. We now have a presentation today from PO Regional Police on overview of the Internet Child Exploitation Unit. Chief, would you like to introduce this presentation, please?
Absolutely, Chair. And just like to invite up Inspector Paul Hove and Detective Mark Ford. And while they're coming up, I just wanted to double back, Chair, to the last meeting we're at. And I think your efforts to communicate publicly about the analogy, and I think I've quoted you probably a couple times this last 51 days, is the analogy of a duck on the water and the feet underneath paddling. And in the absence of us, sharing strategically and communicating the depth of what happens outside of, just the front line, it's very important for me to showcase some of the priorities. And as I mentioned to you, perhaps in an earlier discussion, the ministry is looking at, Commons is looking at discussing with police chiefs and leaders as it relates to digital evidence management. It doesn't sound like it sounds like a private sector technology topic. However, as you can imagine, the complexities of the work that we do now in policing require so much infrastructure, technical skills, specialties, and a whole back end to it to support this big machine. But on the front end are some remarkable individuals doing work that is very critical. And today we have a broad unit called the Crimes Against Persons Unit, and within it is a subset called the Internet Child Exploitation Team. And I don't want to steal these two gentlemen's thunder, but this type of work is a very special area. We are leaders, I must say, nationally, provincially in this type of work. It's not done in isolation. You'll soon see the interconnectivity across borders. And the individuals that are in these teams, technical skills, but a heart for victims. And I'm sure they'll preface what you're about to hear and see, and the public hear and see, which I'm sure they're tempering it. We can't probably see exactly what they deal with every day. But it has a significant impact on the investigators and the civilians in this area. And perhaps at the end of it, I'll comment on it. But we know that we saw a tragic incident that OPP saw in Aurelia, where an officer tragically took his life. And we share our condolences and our support for the OPP. The totality of impact on our officers and individuals when they see critical incidents repeatedly requires our support. I know you, Chair, have heightened that as an emphasis for me as a chief. This one particular unit has a high intensity and impact on individuals. One of the things that we've done to support them, and you won't hear them talk about it because they're so committed to their work, is to ensure that their wellness when they come into the unit. And we have a program called Safeguard, which we do, and Mark, the detective, looks after his team wholeheartedly. He sees their faces every day. We also have Crown attorneys that help prosecute this, that also look at the same images. They've gone about as far as extending our ability to check into the wellness of these individuals. I just trying to peel back the personal nature of the business that you're about to hear is that we have some remarkable investigators that are out to look after the interests of young people that are vulnerable, but they too get exposed. So while you're listening and hearing them, I just wanted to preface that we do have a remarkable set of people doing this work, and it's my pleasure as being the new person on the block to inherit such a great team. So I'll just turn it over to Inspector Hogue and Detective Gordon.
Thank you very much for those kind words, Chief. For the board and for the audience here today, the first two slides you're going to see here are awareness pieces that are put together by our amazing partners of the Canadian Center for Child Protection out of Winnipeg. They're very much in battle against the child sexual abuse material online with social awareness pieces. So I knew first is a video they put together a couple of years ago, and it illustrates some of the effects of this material online and some of the content and the actual amounts that we're dealing with. So the second slide here is also put together by the Canadian Center for Child Protection. It was the Lolly exhibit that was done this summer in Toronto. And what it illustrates is the amounts that we're dealing with here. In a 12-hour period, they uncovered more than 10,000 images that are referred to as lollies by the perpetrators that commit these offenses, describing the child victims or the abuse material that were discovered online. Over 10,000 images or videos in a 12-hour period globally. Just a history of our unit. So we were established in 2004 as an ICE unit, much smaller than what we are today. And in 2006 we became part of a group called the Provincial Strategy, which is a group of law enforcement community from across Ontario, managed by the Ontario Provincial Police. And the funding that comes with that, which is provided by the Community Safety and Correctional Services. We're part of the provincial strategy, and I may refer to it as the strategy moving forward, with 29 other law enforcement partners throughout Ontario. And further that, through the provincial strategy, that has afforded us and fostered strong relationships through other law enforcement communities across the globe. Our mandate is to reduce the supply and demand for child pornography, ensure the successful prosecution and sentencing of child pornography, and identify otherwise unknown victims. Those are pretty much the three main goals or part of the mandate that we look for. What is child porn? These are layman's terms trying to help people understand what we're looking for and what we do. It shows explicit sexual activity of someone under the age of 18, real or depicted. I say that in brackets because one of the current trends we're seeing arising is the arrival of child sex dolls that are being shipped into our country. Secondly, the main dominant feature for sexual purpose is the sexual organ or anal region of the person under the age of 18, and that does include cartoons and written material. What that can refer to that we've seen trends is the increase in anime porn, which is something that we're seeing more and more now. How do we investigate it? So looking at these images, you're looking at hip development, facial features, height and weight, body hair, genital and breast, development, skin texture, and sexual maturation. And in the slide there you see over 82% of the images analyzed by CyberTip are those of images of persons under the age of 12 years. These are the charges that we are commonly using in our investigations, along with their sentencing with respect to the timelines are different depending on how we proceed by indictment. They're obviously greater. The note and highlighted on the bottom, I've highlighted just to represent some of the operational pressures that we face. In 2018, R versus John, the ruling struck down minimum isolated offenses, and I quote, found to be entirely unnecessary and constitutes cruel and unusual punishment. I'll let you process that for yourself. We do have online luring investigations. These are proactive investigations that we've taken on. And it describes the communication with a person who is believed to be under the age of 18 with a computer system for the purpose of facilitating the following offenses, and that would be indecent act, invitation to sexual touching, sexual interference, abduction, incest, child pornography, procuring prostitution, and sexual assault. Below that is the mandatory minimums and sentencing for those offenses. Applying child pornography to the definition of sexting, this is something that we're seeing more and more. Obviously, kids are provided smart devices, more and more commonly. And with that comes some of these issues that we're seeing. And we're discussing this in community groups regularly with these questions being posed. A lot to our school resource officers are having to deal with this. The most common thing is when they're trading images, are they committing the offense of child pornography? It describes those as no longer as the act of the image is legal. All parties are aware of the image being made. All parties consent to the image. One in possession of either depicted or took part in the production. And images are strictly for their own consumption. And again, this talks about some of the displays of images being sent over online. No one can knowingly publish, distribute, transfer, sell, or advertise, or make available intimate image of a person knowing that they didn't give their consent. This highlights some of the partners, the major partners that we use in our investigations, the OPP being the managing partner of the provincial strategy. The RCMP, they house the National Child Coordination Center, which feeds us the what we call the NCECC reports over the course of our investigations. They also house and maintain a national image database referred to for us is called Project WIC. Third group is the Missing Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They are a partner agency in the U.S. that work closely with the NCECC, communicating back and forth trends and information and investigative requirements. Lastly is cybertip.ca, which is, in layman's terms, it's the online version of Crime Stoppers with respect to child sex abuse material online. And that's managed by our partners in the Canadian Center for Child Protection. This illustrates the performance of our unit over the past 12 years. Each year, this seems to have grown to a peak of 49 in 2015. And at current time, I can say that that number of 36 should be changed to 40 as of this morning, 2019. Some of the investigative challenges that we face, firstly, personnel turnover. In 2018 and 2019, we've had a significant turnover in personnel. That presents some problems given that training for each investigator can take 1 to 2 years to get the course and requirements and develop the skills and abilities to investigate these to their fullest potential. The advancement in technology and storage, this is particularly presented some issues. Last year at this time, we've had 1.5 terabytes of data for us to analyze. This year we're at 14 terabytes. To put that in perspective, it's not uncommon for any of our investigations to seize one device that contains upwards of 1 million images or videos. Those videos need to be extracted from that device, presented to the investigators for their viewing, and they have to view every image on that device and categorize those images for the investigation. Roughly, in a 10-hour shift for one of these investigators, you can, depending upon the types of images and videos that they're reviewing and that person's skill set, you're looking at maybe 20 to 30,000 images or videos in a 10-hour period, just to put in perspective of the workload that we're dealing with. Secondly, last year this time we received about 50 reports from the NCEC Center. That's one area of the reporting structure that we received. 50 is last year's total. This time we're about 180 for images or reports of images of child sex abuse material online. The chief spoke about this earlier. All members of our unit take part in the safeguarding protocol. We see every semi-annually we visit a psychologist to have that protocol taking place. We also do pre and post exit interviews with each member of the ICE unit. I brought with me a couple of case studies that I'd like to share with you. First is a case study from this year, June 2019, when our partners from the Canadian Border Services Agency made us aware of an individual who entered our country with some suspected material. Following that information, our team underwent an investigation, which had started off with preservation orders, production orders, search warrants, surveillance, technical surveillance, leading to the arrest of the suspect and seizure and search warrant execution of that individual. And in review of that material that was found in possession of that individual, it was discovered that these were images that were created by this individual. So this is a hands-on, what we describe as a hands-on offender. This is a new live victim, unidentified to us, that while we've arrested, charged, and processed that individual, we still have the obligation to find that victim. That's quite an extensive process in itself. I'm happy to say that we were able to locate that victim and inform that family and seek out any assistance, and that was a great help through the RCMP law enforcement agencies who reached out to the victim who was identified in Lahore, Pakistan. Just to give you an idea of the geographical dimensions of our investigations, there's no borders with respect to these investigations. Case study 2 speaks to the luring component that we investigated. The individual that we investigated with was on a popular social media platform where he was luring young girls into his network for the purpose of exchanging sexual material of those young girls. This individual was communicating with, at one point, at least 4 undercover operators from around North America, committing various offenses. Through the investigation, it was determined that this person was living in the region of Peel, and we were made aware of it and drawn into the investigation. We executed, again, several authorizations, search warrants, surveillance in order for us to come to a successful conclusion, where we arrested, executed a search warrant, and seized several devices that corroborated the evidence of these luring charges, and charges were made here in Canada. And that is all for the conclusion of my presentation. I appreciate your opportunity for your time today.
Thank you very much. There are questions, Mayor Crowley.
Well, where to begin making notes, but let me just first say how disturbing this is, how sickened I am as a mother and as a parent. And I can understand now very well how Chief Dish talked about the safeguard program and the concern for the mental wellness of the officers. It's no wonder they get the 6-month checkup, and no wonder you have high turnover. I mean, who could expose themselves for over long periods of time to this sort of thing? So I don't know if the solution to that is greater minds than mine will. I guess you train more officers more often. Thank you for this work that you do. And it must take a toll on your mental health. It's taken a toll on mine just listening to your presentations. So you're actually viewing images that are very disturbing. With respect to the number of perpetrators, you've arrested 40 this year. It seems to be a drop in the bucket. It was interesting that that the luring officers led you to one perpetrator in Peel, and on a high level, how were you able to determine that they were in Peel?
So determination most times with service providers, won't give exact details of certain issues that require authorization to gain that information. However, they do show a certain area that these perpetrators resolve. Once that's been established, a reach out to that jurisdiction, whether it be appeal or otherwise, is made, and then the investigation is
And there's still no way to trace them through their URL or anything, whatever, means of communication they're using.
We do have some success in tracing these individuals. Obviously, we've been able to identify a number of individuals in our jurisdictions and process the investigation and charge them.
Well, we're very grateful that you do, and we thank you for the work you do. And with respect to the victims, if there are victims in Peel, and what kind of support do we give them and their families?
So there's various number of supports and resources we can provide.
I mean, offshore, I guess it's different, but certainly in North America.
So I spoke earlier about our one group that I have a strong allegiance with and foster a great relationship. That's the Canadian Center for Child Protection. They're a non-profit organization. They're definitely in the fight here with us. They provide a great resource for us. They're based out of Winnipeg. They started out in Winnipeg as Child Find, and they've evolved into a national program. And amongst those, I can call, Lindsay from Center for Child Protection. She'll be here tomorrow.
Wow.
So that's the kind of resource we get.
I mean, I have heard in the past that we were able to identify the victim based on some location determinant. Somehow someone was able to say, oh, I know that that's a motel on the airport strip or something. They were able to find the location and make the arrest and find the child as well. So I mean, I really don't have a lot of questions other than a lot of gratitude for the work you do, and feel badly for the toll it must take on your mental health, because it's not something I could expose myself to on a daily or regular basis. But I'm certainly glad there are people like you that do find these people and arrest them and help protect our children. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Crombie. And if there's no other speakers, and Chief, I appreciate your mentioning that it is something. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Len, I didn't see that. Go ahead, Len, please.
Thank you, Detective Gordon, for an excellent presentation. I couldn't agree more with Mayor Crombie on the difficulty of looking at thousands of pictures and trying to get out of your mind when you go home to relax. I'm not sure if seeing a psychiatrist every 6 months would help, but it's got to be a very difficult task. Have you had any luck with software that helps you do that, just facial recognition or something that can take the toll off looking at too many photographs?
So yes, we, in the past, it's still evolving as we speak. Semantics 21 is a software program that we rely on that's been a great tool, and what I would say is a pre-categorization tool that we use. It creates a significant impact on our workload. At some level, you're still required to view it and classify it, but it gives you at least a pre-categorization report that you can rely on and use in your investigation. That does help us in our efforts.
My second question would be regarding trying to find the final location of some of these perpetrators on the internet with VPNs and Privacy Act. Are you finding the web providers are cooperating with you to try and chase some of these guys down?
So, yes, very difficult and a very good point. That does have a significant impact on our investigation. And yes, the providers, in my opinion, have demonstrated the appetite to suppress this material. We get reports that come directly from those providers to the NCECC, and then downward towards us once it's been determined it's in our jurisdiction, where they've been the lead in identifying and removing those materials from the internet.
Well, hopefully in the long run we can revise the criminal code and make it illegal to publish material like that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Attia.
I'd like to also thank you for the work you're doing. I'd like to ask some questions maybe at a larger, one step up around the online environment and the threats it's posing to our children and our youth, minors. Another area where children are being exposed and are vulnerable is, being pulled into these, dark holes where they're being exposed to radicalization and extremism. And maybe it's not a question for you per se, but with regards to service and how we're dealing with this, there are a lot of minors and, there are minors and youth and children who, because of mental health issues they already have, are being pulled into these conversations and these chat, whatever it is that's exposing them to this, and they're also victims, and it leads them down paths as well that are very difficult and could eventually, they can commit crimes, right? And so we're seeing this becoming more and more. So my first question is, in Peel, what are we doing about this, in helping these identifying victims in that space, and how are we helping them not go down that path? So I don't know, maybe it's not a question for you, but I'm very curious. It's opened my eyes to, it's a similar problem.
So first I'll address the question as it pertains to my investigative body work. And it does broaden the perspective. So we do have a regular request to become available for what's called Cyber Academy, where we do presentations to the public, awareness pieces to keep them apprised of the trends that's going on in our jurisdiction, the threats to our children, steps that we can take to protect them. And those are not specific just to ICE-related investigations. Those are online threats. So it does speak to your overall concern. And we're continually, we're in this with our community to fight this, because the awareness piece is so important. And we place a great value on it with our
As I understand it, Chief, we have a cyber crimes unit. Do they have any focus on?
Yes, thank you for the question. And we do have a pretty fulsome approach from a technological side, the cybercrime unit, which works very closely with our ICE team. But there are multiple facets within that, which sort of look at the medium of the internet presence for indicators towards criminality in a variety of different areas, including, where we're headed to victimization of people, as well as, potentially radicalization or a departure from common norms. And we, back to the duck paddling under the water, I think we've probably found another opportunity to, do a public presentation to show you as much as we can show you without exposing, some of our techniques, but how we do use our ability to look at social media, the internet presence, as it relates to that. We have some really remarkable individuals that are seen, and you would know Detective Ishmael very well, as leaders in, speaking to this. So they all have a confluence of issues that all stem from our ability to deploy resources to look at these things. And just for context, Mr. Attia, is that it's Mark and 5 other people looking at, one of his members, he just said, does 20 to 30,000 images a day. And then once something's found, it has to trigger a really complex investigative process. And the balance of finding, resource to be able to do that is a really challenging thing. But we'd be happy to come back to the board at a later point to speak to that. And I just want to finally comment that, although they're seeing clinicians, maybe once a year or 6 months upon exit or entry, it really isn't enough. And so I think we have an awareness as an organization and a commitment in the new year to really enhance our ability to do that. At times we've done things because it was the best available at the time, and it was perhaps an out-of-the-box ability to check on the well-being, and not to discount the value of safeguarding, but we do recognize, and President Woolley, who's here too, and I have chatted about
the combined effort towards the wellness of our people with what we can do in the future. So we look forward to coming back to you perhaps as a presentation of what we're doing in that regard as well.
So just one more question around public awareness. And so like I think this week there was a motion presented or a private member's bill presented at the Ontario government legislature around cyberbullying. And what was interesting about it is apparently in Ontario, we are doing much less on awareness when it comes to cyberbullying than, in other places. So, just taking that thought around this issue, is there more needed as well around public awareness on this issue to help prevent and protect children, our children?
I would say there's no cap to that. The more awareness and the more involved our community members become with this issue, the better off we are going to be in the fight against this child sex abuse material online. So to answer your question, I would say no, there's no cap. We could continue this, and as the audience grows, so does the awareness piece, so does perhaps some of the suppression.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Brown.
And just briefly, I think a lot of this has already been said, particularly from the chief when he said, we'll look at what's needed going forward. But obviously heart-wrenching and despicable to think of how real and visible this threat is. And so I just hope we have the resources to give you every tool possible to combat this scourge and fight it as aggressively as we can and hold those who are perpetrating this crime against children in our community to make sure they're held accountable, because there couldn't be something more horrific.
Thank you. And if I could just add one thought, because we've gone this far. This is my second privilege of sitting on the board. The first time I sat in the late 1990s. You do the orientation that everyone else does, you do the ride-alongs, et cetera. And I had my first insight into the work that you folks do. It was through IDENT, and they had a binder on the floor and say, Chair, I was in the chair at the time, board member, here's just some of the stuff that we investigate. I opened the cover, saw the first picture, ran to the washroom, gave back breakfast, and the image haunts me 20 years later. And I'm not going to get into the, and it was a suggestive image. It was a suggestive image. And they said, it just gets worse. I know, I'm good. 20 years later, the image haunts me. Can you imagine looking at 10,000 of them a day? How can it not affect you as a human being? And then you got to deal with the scum that are responsible for them and track them down and chase them. So, Chief, that's why, and I appreciate this is the point I'm coming to, it comes down to resources, and I want to speak to 2 points. The resources that the force, the service needs to deal with the stresses and the strains of having to do one of the worst jobs in civilization. I want the confidence that all of the resources necessary for people in the service are forthcoming. And secondly, and it's related, and all of the resources that you need in a technological sense to keep chasing the bad guys. Because when I brought it up at the police service back then, led to a long conversation around the board, and it concluded with the chief of the day saying, and I've used this phrase before, because we were pressing and the board was very, but what about this? And, well, these are sophisticated people and we're not all graduates of MIT, and an exasperated chief saying, we're police officers, you call, we come. But early in its infancy, how well do we understand the internet? And we don't hire graduates from Berkeley or doctoral degrees in technology. Maybe now we do. I'd like to know, Chief, on both fronts, the resources that we need for the health and well-being of the service are plentiful, and anything that's needed, this board will approve, and the resources that we need from a technological training point of view are absolute, whatever it is that is required. And Chief, your comments on that, and can you give us some confidence that that's what you're pursuing and that that's what the board is happy to support?
Certainly, Chair, and I think my team would know that we've been discussing in this last 51 days. I would be confident to say that we'll be back to the board in January with a real renewal of our commitment and actual demonstration of that. We've, got ideas that I've sort of let out of the hat a little bit on my side that we would be doing organizationally to put an emphasis into it. But I, first of all, want to thank you for your implied and obvious support. We will make sure that we as an organization build some significant resiliency and ability to mitigate that risk for our people. And I know you've said this before, to send them home the way we got them. So we'll continue doing that.
Chief, thank you very much. We look forward to that. Okay, with that, I need receipt of the presentation from Mayor Crombie and Mayor Brown. All those in favor, that is carried. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your service. This brings us to other new business. We will now move on to the first item under other new business. It is item number 5, the VCOM microwave backhaul.